Hey deserving listeners, I recently posted a video reacting to Oscar and Kyra's announcement on their YouTube channel that they were breaking up, and apparently they did a follow-up video to their past video that also people are asking me to react to, so let's watch.
So I kind of thought that we would start, I have a bunch of notes on my phone of things that I wanted to address from the last video and the reactions from the last video. And the first thing I want to say is that, Oscar and I are in a very good place, and I don't want to speak for both of us. People get very mad that I speak for both of us. You need to speak for yourself.
Okay, so right off the bat, I'm guessing, was receiving a lot of feedback that she was interrupting him a lot. I was pointing that out as well. I didn't know what that meant, and I didn't know how Oscar felt about it. It looked like Oscar wasn't pleased with it, but we don't know if that's a dominant aspect of their relationship or what. But it is notable that she's, instead of saying, yeah, I need to not interrupt him, I need to let him speak for himself, instead what she's saying is, you need to speak up more, which, might be part of the equation, but from my take on the previous video, it was more her just taking a beat, letting him finish his thought, and then giving your take after he's completed.
Considering the circumstances, yes.
Okay.
I think we're in a good place.
And Oscar's just like that. Oscar, I'm not trying to talk over him or say his feelings. Oscar and I just express ourselves differently, and he's much more like this. He stares out the window and thinks while I talk.
Okay, so I've actually talked about this before. I found a long time ago that there's a spectrum of people where some people will be very active and proactive in a conversation. They tend to interrupt a lot, and they do not have a problem with the other person interrupting. There's a dysfunctional end of that spectrum for sure, but there's a range of functionality where you can be a very active person. I'm kind of like that when I'm with my people I feel safe with, like Umberto, for example. When we're together and we're talking, we're interrupting each other, and that's okay. In fact, if he doesn't interrupt me, I'll just keep talking, and if I don't interrupt him, he'll just keep talking. And we're not doing that because we're disrespectful. We just expect the other person, if they want to say something, they'll just jump in. Whereas on the other end of the healthy spectrum, you'll have people, apparently they're drawing that connection, or at least she is, that Oscar is more of a person that waits to listen, that they wait for a pause, and they might have to think a little bit, and then they will talk. Sometimes this is extroversion versus introversion. It's not always the same, but there's obviously a pathological side to that where someone never talks even if you give them time. Pathological meaning they're often driven by anxiety. Actually, both ends can be driven by anxiety. But anyway, so she's saying, look, I'm more of an active, extroverted interrupter, and I work well with other people that are like that. And he's more of a listener and a thinker and someone who waits to talk. Okay, but that's not really what we were seeing. What we were seeing was he would start to talk, and she would literally interrupt him and not stop herself or not go, I'm sorry, I interrupted you, or something like that. She would anxiously, I think, stop him from saying things because I think she was worried he was going to say something that would be too much, or would be something she wouldn't want to hear, or something she didn't want on the video or something. That's just my guess. It's not a horrible thing. People were, I think, giving her feedback that was pretty pointed, if you will. I think when I was reacting, I was saying, as a couples therapist, I deal a lot with that. A good percentage of couples will have this difference when they come on my couch. There will be someone that will talk, or in family therapy as well, someone will speak for a child or something. And novice therapists, I find, inexperienced therapists will jump all over. They're like, hey, we got to stop that. And, that might be an option, but it's not an emergency. These are patterns in families that tend to be ongoing, and sometimes there are reasons for it. You just take it easy, take your time. That's my style anyway.
Muting me out right now.
Only in serious situations like
yes,
this.
yeah. And same thing, I remember his mom, when we told her that we were pregnant with Levi,
oh, yeah,
you said nothing the whole time. Yeah. And I had to say anything, because these are
okay, so we're hearing Oscar say, yeah, in serious situations, I tend not to say anything. Is that shutting down? Is that knowing that she will say, because sometimes people will have those complementary roles that fit together, where he knows that she's going to say all the things, and he doesn't want to say things, so he just lets her, and maybe even passively encourages her to say things because he doesn't step in. And it sounds like she gets maybe a little frustrated with that sometimes. It's like, are you going to say something? So we're hearing a bit of a dynamic. I don't think that explains what we saw in the video, though.
Awkward conversations to have. You don't really know what to say, and you don't want to say the wrong thing, especially on the internet with all the backlash. So I'm not letting him speak. You can speak. Okay, but...
Right. So if people were saying that she wasn't letting him speak as a blanket statement, that doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, he has the ability to say, let's re-record the video or whatever. So, and he certainly said a number of things. So it wasn't a black and white issue for sure.
Yes, we are in a really good place. Like, we have fun together all day. We make jokes together all day. Like, this morning I told him my nipples were hard, and he went to grab and was like, and like, it's funny. We have like banter. We're in a good place, considering.
Yes.
No?
Yes. Yeah,
no, are we in a good place?
Yes.
Tell him.
I'm laughing because the nipple thing was out of habit, and I didn't squeeze. I just was like, oh wait,
yeah, he didn't. He said, but like, we are happy, and we have, this is like, I know.
So she really is trying to make the point that they're happy and that they're in a good place. And she keeps trying to say, hey, say, because people aren't going to believe it if I say it and you don't. But I don't know if Oscar is 100%. Now, maybe part of what he's doing is presenting to her when they're not on camera that he's not in a bad place, but he's probably in a bad place at times. I wouldn't be surprised if he wasn't in a pretty bad. I should say that he reached out to me actually after the last video and said that we just had a short text exchange, and it wasn't long, but what do I say? Whenever people that I react to reach out to me, and they often do, honestly. And in the beginning, it was mortifying, like, oh my God, what did I say? But really, it often turns out to be a good exchange with people online. I mean, I don't know if you remember back when I reacted to Ash from Before the 90 Days, like, I was really criticizing him, and we ended up talking a lot. I ended up coming on his podcast. Anyway, so I have a policy now that if they ever do reach out to me, I may or may not talk about it in public, but I'm definitely not going to talk about the conversation. It's not a confidential conversation or not a client of mine, but I just find that I just don't want to get into this outing people, or if someone wants to talk with me, we can have a little exchange. But I might acknowledge that I did, because partly I feel like you should know that as I'm talking about this, because it will contextualize a little bit. And I know a little bit more information from Oscar's side. Now, Oscar was not talking bad about Kyra at all. He didn't say like, well, actually, like, he was just saying essentially things that we would imagine, that it's, he's going through a breakup right now, and he's having some ups and downs emotionally. So for him, and I would imagine this anyway, that, as I was saying in the last video, she has been mourning the relationship, grieving the relationship for months prior to this, because in her mind, she's like, I'm going to leave. She starts to adjust and grieve, but it's alone and maybe with people she's confiding with. He had no idea when she told him earlier, like a few weeks ago, I think, from this, or maybe a week or two before this video. That's when his grief process begins. And the date of this video is January 9th. So I think it's only been like a week or two since he found out that they're breaking up. So the chance that he's completely resolved on the issue emotionally in the past 2 weeks is completely impossible. There's no way that he's just like, yep, totally fine. I'm good. We're friends. Everything's just fine. It's all just pinching each other. And I'm sure for him, it's just like, well, yeah, I mean, I have moments where, and I like being friends with her, and I'm not hostile towards her, but I'm having some ups and downs. And hearing what we're hearing a little bit of her saying, when he, and he even kind of agreed, when he has emotions, he tends to shut down, tends to clam up. And Men are more likely to do this. Anyone of any gender can do this, but men are really taught to be this way when they're growing up. They're really encouraged to be stoic and not have emotions. And, I've talked about for myself that no one told me to do this, but I just sort of picked up from society that boys aren't supposed to cry. And in the 6th grade, I went on this campaign to eliminate the possibility of me crying. And so whenever I had the impulse to cry, I actually got angry and I would clench my fists. And then from that day forward, for a number of years, I never cried again, even in times when it's like, shouldn't I be crying right now? But tears wouldn't happen. And then in my 20s, as I started to recover from that socialization, I went on a campaign to re-cry again. It took me years of a lot of actual work physically to kind of like push the tears out. And now I cry all the time. So boys are socialized this way. And so it's possible maybe he was modeled this growing up, or this was his role in his family, or who knows. But it sounds like when he's under stress, he kind of goes blank, or he shuts down, or he's quiet, thoughtful, not a lot of disclosure. She's more of the disclosing type. And so it's possible that she doesn't even know really how much suffering he's going through. Maybe at this point, maybe she does by now, because I'm actually recording this at the end of January. But and we can kind of even see it in the body language. She's like, everything's fine, we're great. And he's just kind of like, yeah, well, yeah, I guess. And so I'm guessing there are times when things are good and times when things are emotionally not well for him. I mean, just imagine that. 4 kids. I don't know how old they are, but, young. And you see a big part of breaking up in a situation like this is you see your whole life planned out, and then all of a sudden someone just comes along and just wipes that clean and said, nope, that's not going to happen. This is not your future. I'm not going to grow old with you. You're going to be single. You might be with someone else. I'm going to be with someone else. You might have other kids. I might have other kids. The kids might go back and forth from different homes. I might move. There's just all these things of your future. It's like, wait, so that's not, so that's a big part. And then of course, if you're still in love with a partner and it's like, but I love you and I'm neurologically bonded with you. I can't live without you. I don't, what am I supposed to do? And it can have profound effects on the body, profound effects on your mind. And it's no joke, and it lasts for a long time.
It's new to you guys, but it's not necessarily brand new to us like it is on the internet. So
well, it is shocking, and we were sad at first. Both of us were. Yeah, it was a lot at first. So you got to remember, we couldn't even upload. Like, I laid in bed forever. Like, I've been processing these emotions and stuff. So no, I didn't get on camera, and I'm like laughing as I broke up with him. Like, that's how it's portrayed, and that's.
Oh, so it sounds like they're also she's being criticized, maybe both of them, for being very nonchalant about the breakup. And that's not the way I was seeing it. I know enough about people when they're going through tough times. I mean, you can be diagnosed with terminal cancer or something and have a lot of ups and downs, but you can have a moment where you're laughing and having a moment of levity, but that doesn't mean you're not taking it seriously or you're not sad about it. People, or your family dies tragically in a car accident. A month later, you could watch a comedy and laugh or something. Like, it's not like it is in our minds the way that we think people are supposed to feel and constantly be. There's moments, right? You could cry for 8 hours and be happy for 8 hours a day. It's different moment to moment. And so the fact that in the last video they were laughing and joking around doesn't indicate that they're not sad or not taking it seriously. It doesn't indicate anything really, other than the fact that that's what the demeanor was in the moment. And we saw that he cried in the last video. He was sad.
Not true.
True. Very true.
I don't even remember what I said exactly, but like saying that we've been having problems for a year. People are assuming that a year ago I knew we were not going to be together. Mm-hmm. That is not the situation. And I actually talked to Oscar about this off camera to make sure he didn't feel this way.
Okay, good. And they talked about that as well. That was not what I took away from it. I guess if you're a black and white thinker and you're watching the last video, that's what you would interpret it. She was, I thought, clear that a year ago she started thinking about it. There was like a dissatisfaction that was brewing, but it was not to the point where it was a few months ago when she was like, oh, I think I want to break up. And that's a real common story, right? And of course, you would hope that that would be the case. You would hope that someone would have a long-term building dissatisfaction, that they wouldn't just upon one day just say, I'm dissatisfied, I'm going to break up with them. So that's usually the case. And usually people need, weeks, months, years. I've had clients who contemplate divorce for 5 years before they actually do it because they're not sure. It's a big decision to break up, and I'm sure she thought about that.
No, I don't feel like okay, this is another hard one for me to answer because I didn't realize anything up until like a month and a half ago. So that's my fault in the relationship to not pick up on like, hey, Kyra's struggling. Mm-hmm. This is what she's going through, because it takes two people. So that was my bad, and that's why I was so shocked by that.
So she's trying to let him talk, which is good. But in trying to let him talk, she's talking about trying to let him talk. So it looks like she has a pretty big impulse and is some kind of impulse control problem on her behalf. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if she has a problem with impulse control and self-control. People sometimes are like that. It's sometimes the way you're raised, that there are certain lessons you have to, what I'll say is, sometimes it's a family culture thing. There's some families where there's this constant activity and extroversion and talking, chaos. And it works in their situation. But what that does is it produces kids who have very little self-control when it comes to saying what's on their mind. And if you're raised in a family where the parents are like, stop interrupting, let me finish, and now you talk, and you have that practice of, okay, now I'm in listen. It's almost a neurological thing. It's like, oh, I'm in listening mode. Okay, now I'm in talking mode. Okay, now I'm in listening mode. If you don't have that growing up, you don't differentiate between listening and talking. Any moment is a talking potential moment. And if you're with a bunch of family members that are like that, they will assert themselves and get, they'll maybe even say, shut up, let me talk. They'll assert their need to, I was finished. There'll be this sort of combative functional dynamic to keep talking. But if you're not like that and you marry someone like that, it can be very frustrating. It's very, very difficult to deal with someone like that. And if you're like that, you have to learn, okay, self-control, like calm down, let him finish, wait for the period. And then even say, are you done? Can I say something, right? Because I don't know if Oscar is like this, but she's labeling in this way. If he is the way that she's talking about, the way that he is, people like him, you got to give them like 5 seconds to think if they have more things to say. Introverts tend to have, and some people might say, well, he's not introverted because he has a YouTube channel. And you can be, the introverted isn't shy. Introverted is a way that you process social activity and the way that you process conversations. And listen to my episodes on extroversion and introversion. But and I don't know if he's an introvert, but if he needs more time to think and before he speaks, sometimes if you're the Kyra in the equation, you have to literally give people like 5 seconds of time before you say something, because they might actually still be thinking about their next sentence, and you'll be actually interrupting them. But to you, it's like 5 seconds of dead air is like, that's more than enough time to speak in that situation.
It's so hard not to interrupt. I'm so bad at it.
I know, it's okay. It's just you. Dude, just be normal. Who cares?
Well, I'm trying, but people go berserk like it's their full-time job or something.
I'm so sorry about that too. I'm not.
Okay, so, and I was curious about that, because that's really the main question. You as a viewer can go like, I don't like the fact that she's talking over him, but we really have to ask Oscar, because I knew that Oscar wasn't enthusiastic about it, but I didn't know if he was like, if he felt controlled or oppressed in some way. And there's a possibility that he's just like, yeah, I don't know, I don't care if she talks, I don't have much to say, or what I was saying wasn't that interesting anyway. Not self-deprecating, just sort of like, look, it's just a video, it doesn't really matter. And I get that impression from him that he's not like grumbling about it and in pain about it. Now, I wonder if he is prone to not acknowledging his needs in this way. You know, that's a question there. But anyway, he just said, like, stop stopping yourself from interrupting me. Just be normal. Like, we can't have you being so stilted in this video. Just, it's okay, you know. So, and that's one of the things that we have to consider for ourselves as couples therapists, is just because we are saying, I don't like what that person is doing to that other person, doesn't mean that the other person is receiving it that way. And that's why, as a therapist, you really have to investigate. You'd be like, how are you processing that, and not make assumptions.
Let's go.
People also don't like that I touch you.
Oh, really?
It's
Why?
Oh,
yeah. No, guys, it is done. Like,
whoa. I mean, it is, but relax.
Yeah, well.
Okay, what was I going to say? This is why I interrupt, because...
So we're going to hear why she interrupts, why she believes. I think she interrupts because of the way she was raised, but she has a story about this that we'll hear. But it sounds like she's being criticized for touching him. Why would you criticize that? I mean, they're friends, they still have affection. Now, again, you can say, well, maybe it upsets him because it gives him the wrong impression. Well, we have to ask Oscar. You can't. One of the things that I'm realizing, and I'm sure other people have been talking about it, because I'm sure I'm not the first person to have noticed, but people need to stop fighting other people's fights that other people don't want you to fight. I listen to my episode with Umberto where I talk about this, but being offended for other people. It's great that you feel bad for someone. You're just like, oh, it looks like they're suffering. I want to fight for them. You know, someone's being bullied. I want to help the victim. I want to do that. That's great. It's a great impulse. But under circumstances like this, you don't know if anyone's being victimized. So you can look at it and say, I think I would feel victimized if I was that person, but you have to be differentiated. You are not that person. You do not know what's in their mind. You don't know how they feel. We have to know from Oscar, does he feel victimized? And even if he does he want me to fight for him? You know, he said earlier, he's like, yeah, I'm sorry about that. I think he's saying, people are fighting on my behalf, and I'm sorry to you because I didn't ask them to do that. And I find that on the internet right now, it's like everyone's looking to fight, and they'll find any, canvas to paint that fight on, and just take a beat. The impulse is good. You're trying to stick up for the underdog. Great. But have a step, you see something, you have the impulse, insert step 3, which is check with the victim. Do they, 1, feel victimized? Do you even read it right? And 2, do they want you to fight for them? Or is it just another way of discounting them by fighting for them when you don't even ask them if they have been victimized? So just, take a beat and give people the benefit of the doubt as well. Do you believe that Kyra is this horrible, psychopathic person who's, harming him and leading? She's breaking up with him, and it hurts him, and she fell out of love, and it sucks. And she's not maybe she is a horrible person, but nothing in that, and certainly nothing in the video said that she was a horrible person.
No, guys, it is done. Like,
whoa. I mean, it is, but relax.
Well.
Okay, what was I going to say? This is why I interrupt, because otherwise I lose what I was saying. Mm-hmm. It was important.
Okay, so she's saying, I interrupt because I lose what I'm going to say. That doesn't justify interrupting. It's more important you let someone say something. It's a good sacrifice. If waiting for someone to fully complete their thought, especially if it's just one sentence, and you lose your train of thought, that's okay.
We kind of talked about that, and to be honest, I love Oscar. He is a great person, a great dad, a great fiance.
And actually, it is a symptom of ADHD. I have no idea if she has ADHD. It's actually a pretty complicated condition. But those two things sometimes go together, as interrupting impulse control, having problems with impulse control, and the inability to hold things in working memory, the inability to hold your train of thought without stimulants. I mean, sometimes stimulants help.
And he also had issues with me. Mm-hmm. So that's when I started to just feel defeated, but that's not when I decided oh, I'm done with him. And then I stayed with him for a year. Like, if you guys know me at all, the second I know I'm done, you'll know I'm done. Like, I don't think.
Okay, so she's giving more background to why she became sure slowly over time that she wanted to leave. And it's a pretty common story that she's saying.
Vasectomy. This is so wild. So wild. This one bothers you, yeah? This one actually infuriates me. I never asked Oscar to get a vasectomy. I did not want him to get a vasectomy. I wanted more kids, and I highly encouraged he didn't get the vasectomy.
Okay, they didn't talk about this in the last video from my memory. And is she being criticized for making him get a vasectomy and then breaking up with him, and now he can't have kids anymore? So again, people would do better by asking Oscar if he feels victimized. So according to her story anyway, he hasn't confirmed this, but according to her story it was completely his idea, and she was okay with it, but she was actually encouraging him not to, and she wanted more kids. So it's not that she forced him. Again, people are just looking for some, is it too many Marvel movies or something where there's always like a Thanos? Is everyone looking for a Thanos on YouTube?
Thinking we were going to be together forever. Not that I want any more kids or that I want other kids with other people right now. I think I made the right choice as of right now. And I think forever. I think I don't know, like, I have 4 kids. Like,
but guess what? If you change your mind,
you can reverse it. Will I?
You can? No, you're lying. Oh, I touched you. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay, so what he's saying is, I think what he's saying is, well, even though when I got the vasectomy, I thought I was going to be with Kyra for the rest of my life, and now that we're not going to be together, I'm not quite sure if getting the vasectomy is the best thing. But actually, I still think it is best that I got a vasectomy because I already have 4 kids, and probably wouldn't want. But I think if he was a little bit more disclosing right now, he would say, if I could take it back, I might actually. I still might get it in the future at some point, but I don't know what the future holds. I might meet someone, and that person might really want to have a kid with me and might convince me to have more kids. So it does kind of suck that I have the vasectomy. But did Kyra, so I guess the question is did he get the vasectomy during a time when she had significant questions as to whether or not she was going to stay with him? Because if that's the case, then yeah, she probably should have mentioned that. She'd be like, okay, before you do this, I need to tell you something. Like, I don't think I'm going to want to leave you, but I just feel like I should tell you, because if you get this vasectomy and things go wrong down the line and we do get a divorce, I just feel like you should, like, that could have been something that is within question. But it's a lot to ask, and we would have to know where she was at when he was contemplating the vasectomy. But he's saying, yeah, I think I'm mostly okay with it. And like you said, I got 4 kids, well, I want, but again, I'm guessing if he were being honest with the camera and with her, he would say, I kind of wish you would have told me. I kind of wish I would have known, and could have made the choice with a little bit more information.
Or like backlash for that, and I did not want that. I did not want him to have a vasectomy.
True.
And
hence why I did it.
Yes.
Because you wanted more kids. Like
yeah, he asked me to get that, and I said no. I don't want to get. I'm like also weird about bodily things. It had nothing to do with having more kids in the future.
Yeah, I mean, but the bottom line is people attacking her without the information is just unfair, uncool, immature. Why? You could have a question mark. You could say something, but to actively try to communicate to her and attack her is without the information, I find. And research shows that a good percentage of the people on the internet are psychopaths, meaning that they actually have no remorse for other human beings. If you are a psychopath, if you have no remorse, and you're a sadist in addition, or a sadist and actually get off on harming other people, you're much more likely to be active online. Therefore, in the general population, if you're just meeting people, the chance of you meeting a psychopath is pretty low, but the chance of you interacting with a psychopath online is extremely high or higher because of their tendency to enact their lack of empathy and harm upon other people online is much greater because they can get away with it without any kind of consequences. They can just yell at people. And so I don't know if that's what she's experiencing, but plenty of people who aren't psychopaths are just, I don't know, jumping to conclusions or something. I feel like because of the internet or something in school, we need like a whole 12-year course on don't jump to conclusions. Like, take a step of investigation before you make an assumption about what's happening. Like, your impulse, based on your assumption, you did the right thing. Maybe you assumed something wrong. And I'll never forget that when I was in the football, I played football a lot throughout my life, and I was in the huddle, and someone said something, it could have been me, someone else, and we really made our coach angry, and the coach came out on the field, and it could have been me, I don't know, someone said like, well, I assumed that you wanted us to do this thing, and the coach was really angry, and he was like, when you assume something, you make an ass out of you and me, because that's how you spell assume, right? Ass, you, me. When you assume something, you make an ass out of you and me. And I just remember, like, it really got into my head at that age. So the huddle was like, oh yeah, you probably shouldn't assume things. Like, ask the question. If you don't know the answer, just say, I guess I don't know. I don't know yet. I think, but I don't know.
Oh, I thought you meant me hooking up with guys. I'm like, wait, what? But you hooking up with, yes.
I thought you were about to straight up lie right now.
I was like,
and I
wait,
could punch you in the face. No, like, we are making these jokes together. They're jokes. It's fine. Like, I don't understand. The next question, which you actually kind of answered this a little while ago. We've had a lot of people say, like...
So I will say that research shows that couples who can joke about tense things tend to do better. They tend to have more satisfaction and last longer. So what they're exhibiting is they're going through a tough time and they're still joking about it. He was joking about her being with other men. I'm guessing there's a part of him, at least, that is struggling with that. He just found out recently that they're going to break up and that she might be with other men. I don't know that he struggles a little bit with it, but I'm just guessing that it's not a pleasant thought to lose her and to have her be with other people. But he's making a joke about it. And so on one hand, there can be a lot of health in that, a lot of tension release, a lot of bonding around that kind of thing, things you can subtly express through a joke. On the other hand, if you only process things through joking, you deny yourself to be real and vulnerable. I don't know if that's what's happening. There's no sign of that. But that would be a question that I would have for them.
Second time almost, if I changed my mind or you changed your mind, I'd rather just say what I feel and break it off. And then in the future, if we find each other again in a romantic way, then so be it.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I don't want to speak for my future self, but as of right now, it's like an official no. I don't want to.
Yeah. Okay, I also saw this.
Okay, so we're hearing him say that he's done. In the previous video, it seemed less. You seem mainly in the stage of just like what's happening, and now he's seemingly at this moment he's wrestled with the true reality of it being over. And I think when he says no, he's like, I won, and I don't know, I don't want to assume, but commonly what will be the case is that people will say, I have wrestled with the fact that it's over, and I don't want to open that can of worms in my mind because it'll bring hope and that will cause suffering. So I'm just going to say no. 2, I don't want to be with someone who doesn't want to be with me. I don't want to be with someone who has the tendency to break up with me and over these sorts of things. And so even if she came back to me, I don't think I could ever trust her again or that kind of thing. I don't know. Maybe we'll get into which one it is.
Comment a lot. And this is like, I totally understand. And I've heard this saying a million times, but a lot of people are like, this is coming from an older viewer, or, I did what you did. And like the grass isn't always greener. is what a lot of people said. And I fully agree with you. I think that every relationship that I will ever be in will have its issues.
It's interesting. That doesn't surprise me that people would have a reaction watching this, particularly if you're a fan of the channel, that you would look at her and say, like, do you think you're going to find something better? What's wrong with you? You have a great relationship. And what about the kids? And there's this compulsion to pressure the Kyras of the world to her name's Kyra, right? I think I definitely know his name's Oscar, but I'm pretty sure, anyway, that they want to push them back in. It feels more comfortable if she stays. To outsiders, it can sometimes feel a lot more comfortable, particularly if you're not aware of the downside of their relationship, which I'm guessing they didn't show on this channel. And so people, even though they're talking about it, doesn't really resonate with them. So that I get the impulse, but as an outsider, you want to be careful about that, because it is perhaps making guesses about what's going on. One, people are guessing that she didn't think about that and that she didn't consider that. Two, that the suffering that she was going through isn't as significant as she's claiming it to be. We don't know. I'm guessing the way that they talk about the fights that they get into, and they have reasons to kind of not fully go into that, because the channel isn't that kind of channel, that it was pretty ugly at times. I would not be surprised if we knew the reality of their conflicts, that it would get pretty dark at times. And I think for her, it got real dark at times. I mean, she talked about depression in the last video. Maybe there's even suicidal thoughts. I don't know. So now she could be wrong. She could be making a wrong choice. She could leave and say, oh my God, I've made a terrible mistake. But, as I was saying in the last video, I rarely hear someone, but I sometimes do and have experienced this, but it's rare, that someone will say, this is over. I can't do this anymore. I don't care if I never meet someone better than him. I might not ever meet someone better than him, but I just can't do this anymore. And when someone gets to that point in my neck of the woods where you have a relative freedom to leave a relationship, they almost never regret it later on. They almost never look back and say, like, oh my God, I should have never left that person. Whether or not that's a rational point of view, I don't know. You could debate that. But when I talk with a lot of people about this decision point to stay or leave, and there are certain ways that people talk that I find, that sounds like a person that has thought about it and knows what they're getting into and is resolved. And there's no turning back from the decision tree that they went down months ago. And she seems like that.
Like in an abusive relationship or anything like that. Yeah. Like I think what people maybe are getting confused, I don't think that I'm going to find better. I'm not going out of this relationship looking for a different relationship. I'm not going out of this relationship looking for things that were lacking. Yeah. I'm going out of this relationship to learn how to love and find myself.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. So that's a particular, I've heard that before, and I've worked with people like this before. I don't know if this is what, maybe she'll get into it, but sometimes what that means, I don't know, is they've had a lifetime of difficulty in relationships, starting with their parents growing up. And sometimes you can be raised by loving, non-abusive parents, but still have a dynamic that denies you the ability to really explore who you are, independent of influence from the outside. And then you get married really quickly, you have kids really quickly, and even though your life isn't terrible, you really just don't know who you are, and you try to explore who you are within the marriage and within the family, but it's too hard. It's almost just like you need everyone to get out of the house before you can think straight. And some people have it's a personality disorder spectrum. Sometimes it's dependency, sometimes it's other things, but maybe she'll give us some data to build a stronger hypothesis.
And so I think that difference needs to be extremely clear. I am trying to find who I am because I have lost that. I have never really had that. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm doing.
So I wonder what she means by that. There are certain key questions that I would ask, and I'm guessing we're not going to get data, but we start to see her have some emotion around it, have some crying around it. So it's deep, right? And what I would ask her, I would say, well, who are you? Do you know who you are? Do you know what you are? When in the past have you ever known who you are? When you look inside, what do you see? What was your childhood like? That kind of thing. And what some people will say, I think somewhat legitimately, is, well, you can find who you are within a marriage. It doesn't preclude that ability, doesn't exclude that ability. And that's true. But for some people, the compulsion, the claustrophobia one feels is so compelling that you kind of fall out of love with your partner in that, because your partner ends up feeling like a confinement, even though it's just like, well, I know I'm kind of doing that to myself, but I got to get out to think and to be on my own. I just have to. And I don't know how old they are. They seem pretty young. I mean, if you asked me how old they were, I'd go like, I don't know, 17. But they have 4 kids. And so, I guess they could be 17, I guess, biologically. But I'm guessing they're 25, 30 or something. And so I'm guessing she's not 45, my point is. And so I'm guessing that it was a pretty seamless transition from dependency on parents to marriage, kids, and there hasn't been a lot of breathing room to, and even if she did have a few years in college or something, it could have been just an extension of the mindset of a child. And so I'm curious about that. And I hope the best for her along that. Maybe we'll get some more data.
After that, I just thought of it as you were speaking. Same thing. It's not that I still don't know who I was outside of this little bubble that we've created. So I'm wondering if because of that, I had maybe like a lack of self-confidence, maybe because I was a little bit of a grumpier human this last year. And so I wonder if that kind of helped.
Interesting. So he's saying, taking ownership. By the way, I can hear a beeping noise in the background. I don't know if you can hear it. It's the same beeping noise that my alarm system makes, and it's because I think one of their sensors is not connected to their panel. So every time I hear it, I'm just like, it reminds, I should go. No, I think it's on their video. Anyway, maybe it is on. I'll check my panel, make sure everything's working. But anyway, let's rewind this because I think he's making an interesting point.
I just thought of it as you were speaking. Same thing. It's not that I still don't know who I was outside of this little bubble that we've created. So I'm wondering if because of that, I had maybe like a lack of self-confidence, maybe because I was a little bit of a grumpier human this last.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that beeping is on there. And so he's saying, I think me too. And maybe they fit well together because of that. And I think he also doesn't look 45, so I'm guessing that there was a pretty quick transition into family life for him. And for him, he is like, maybe me too. I don't know who I am, and maybe this is a good chance for me to figure that out. I will say you can explore who you are while staying married. I have worked with a lot of people on that. Sometimes you find you're not actually in love with your partner because you only married them because you thought you're supposed to, and you thought you were in love, but you didn't know that you weren't even connected to yourself. So you didn't even know what other people were talking about was different than what you felt. And so, but and I always talk about 2 main things with people, and it all comes down to 2 questions. What do you feel and what do you want? That defines basically what the self is. What am I feeling and what do I want? And what do we want is often related to how we feel. Our feelings motivate us to do something. I feel hungry, I go get food. I feel sad, I want to cry. I feel lonely, I want to reach out to someone. I feel happy, I want to laugh and have joy with someone. So those 2 questions, I wonder if they are beginning that journey and saying, who am I? And like I said, you could do that within a relationship. It sounds like for her, though, it is, I'm guessing she would say more than what she said, because in the last video, she talked about how he would be grumpy and it became pretty demoralizing to her, and there was violence apparently. And so maybe she's cleaning up the narrative a little bit not in a false way, but in a more pleasant way or something. And sometimes people will do this in her position to save your ex-partner's feelings. You'll pick kind of the corner of the explanation that's the least offensive to the person. You're like, look, it's not you, it's me. I'm trying to do this. But there's this other side of like, it is kind of you in a way. I wonder if she's doing that.
What are your wants? What are your boundaries for yourself? Yeah. Like, what do you feel talented doing? What makes you feel sexiest? Like all these things. And
it's hard to figure out like in any situation, but I think for me it was way harder too because I'm extremely comfortable. So I'm like, what is my problem? What is my issue? What was my deal?
Yeah. If you have a privileged life or a good life, according to a lot of definitions, that does not necessarily mean that you're happy with it. There are a lot of people who are living good lives, but they've never been given a chance because of the way they were raised to know what they want and know how they feel. And so they've engineered a life, they've cobbled together and built this life because that's what you're supposed to do, and they've been privileged enough to be able to do that. But at no point did they say, this is what I want. It's more like, well, I'm pretty sure this is what you're supposed to do. And when you have that scenario, you do not feel good about it, and you won't feel good about it. You'll be depressed, you'll feel disconnected, and you'll blame yourself, as Oscar was doing, about, well, I have it all. How come I don't feel good about it?
Like, I'm not going to apologize for wanting to learn to love me, you know?
Not that I'm saying we should.
Are you laughing when I'm crying?
A little bit, but not at you. This is kind of a weird thing to bring up right now. Not that I'm saying I want to get back together or anything, but why'd you feel the need to end it so you could go through this?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would ask the same thing. So let's see what she says to this, because I'm guessing she's going to have to reveal that other part of the room of, well, actually, it was kind of you.
This instead of figuring it out together.
One of my biggest things is like being alone. And I think that's truly when you do find yourself is when you're put in these like critical life situations. Mm-hmm. And I feel like you said, I've been so comfortable with you that I'm not, like, I don't know anything outside of that. And I don't feel like I've like plateaued. Like I can't grow.
I mean, I'm not going to criticize her decision. When, like I said before, when people make the decision to leave, it's usually final. Meaning that they've thought about it a long time. You know, think about on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. It's like, is this your final answer? Imagine being asked that every day for like 5 months, and you constantly, yes, this is my final. Yes, I'm positive. It's my yes, another day, final answer. After 5 months, that's usually when people actually tell the person or even admit it to themselves. So in all likelihood, you know, this is the final answer. She knows that this is what she wants overall. On the other hand, you know, he's asking her, okay, but why does that make you want to leave me? I mean, can't you find yourself within the relationship? You know, because I'm thinking from Oscar's perspective, he's thinking, I don't think, you know, when I think about myself now, in light of what you're saying, I think I can kind of relate to it, but it doesn't cause me to want to leave you. Like, it doesn't mean that I have to leave you, you know? Now, what she's saying is I have to be alone. And she said that we learn who we are in critical moments when we're alone. I think that that's a bit of a myth. It is true, kind of course, but generally speaking, I don't know if she suffers from this, but when you lack a connection with yourself, it needs to be neurologically fostered over time and built over time. It's like working out. You can't go from, you know, being non-muscly to Arnold Schwarzenegger overnight, right? You got to work out. You got to build those connections. You got to build that muscle. And the way you build that muscle is slowly over time. And what I do with my clients is I ask them to ask themselves and encourage other people to ask them as well. Then I ask them those two questions. What are you feeling and what do you want? And for the first while, they won't be able to answer that question. Slowly, they start to be able to answer that question. But it takes years, especially if you really didn't have a lot of that growing up. So that is probable. I don't know if that's what she's talking about, but if that's the path she's on, then that would be. But there's another possibility to what she's saying, in that she might feel, because of what she went through growing up, she feels it's too distracting to be with someone else because she's overly concerned with other people's, how they're doing, and puts herself in the back burner, and it's just constantly, again, you can work on this when you're in a relationship if you go to therapy, but it maybe that's what she's talking about. It might not be a disconnect. I mean, it's related to a disconnection with herself, but it has another side to it, another element of it, that I need to be alone because when you're around, I'm constantly concerned with what you're doing and how you're doing and making sure you're okay and making sure that you're okay with me. And I just can't think about myself unless I'm separate from you. I don't know which one she's talking about though, but I mean, again, she's free to make her choice, but I'm having a hard time grasping what she's trying to explain to Oscar.
To lack in the last year or so.
Yeah.
So, yeah. A lot of people want to know, did you at any point know I was going to leave?
Yeah. Well, no, okay. Progressively as it went on, I came more to terms with it. And that's why when you told me, I was able to get over it like within a week, 2 weeks, because I already saw it coming. I already did know, like, oh yeah, this is happening.
Okay, so I think what he's saying is, I didn't know you were leaving, but I saw the signs and I knew something was wrong, but I didn't really think you're going to leave me. And then when you told me you're leaving, it all kind of made sense and I adjusted pretty quickly. I kind of worry about him a little bit, to be honest. I mean, he's saying, it only took me a couple weeks and now I'm over it. Like in light of our conversation, I know that he's pretty self-aware to an extent. I don't know to what extent, but to an extent. But I worry about, because there are some signs in this video. There wasn't in the last one so much, but in this one, of shutting down his emotions or not. I mean, I will say that he did exhibit some vulnerability last time in a pretty spontaneous way, the other video. But if I heard this and I was his therapist, I would say, like, well, let's wait and see, and let's really make sure. The other thing that I'll say is that grief is, they talk about the 5 stages of grief. That's all bullcrap. Research shows that's not true. It is true for some people, but it's definitely not a universal. There is a universal when we look at actual observational empirical data about humans, that people vacillate between 2 states, and they're not stages. It's just like people will bounce back and forth, or they'll stay in one for 1 year and the other one for another. It's between grieving and rebuilding. And so grieving is crying and thinking and reminiscing and being in pain and longing. And rebuilding is not thinking about it and not dealing with it, laughing, moving forward, that kind of thing. And people go naturally from each state to the next. And when they're allowed to do that naturally and spontaneously, without pressure from the outside and without internalized messages getting in the way of that, then they go down the road of grief in a healthy fashion. Now, healthy grief involves a lot of pain and a lot of longing and a lot of despair. So there's no way to get out of that. But there's a healthier process that will result in less complications in the future and it being attenuated more quickly over time. So for some people, and I don't know if Oscar is one of those people, when they have a big loss like this, for reasons that their body needs, they go into a rebuilding phase right away. There's like, okay, we got our video channel to do. I've got to start thinking about the future. I've got to start making plans about separation. I've got to think about, like, what are we going to do with the kids? Where are we going to live? Okay, let's and then once all that is worked out, then the grief begins, and then it's just like 3 years of crying. So, this is the state he's in right now. I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't have, that back and forth. But right in this moment, he's like, yeah, I feel like I've adjusted pretty well. And I wouldn't say, oh boy, you don't know what you're doing. It's possible that the way that he's dealt with it, for some people with a loss like this, it isn't. What I'll say is there's no universal way of reacting to a loss or a loss of any kind. We tend to think that there is. And we tend as a society to think, unless you're not grieving enough or you're grieving too much. And what I found is that there's no good amount of grieving to society. You're either grieving too little or you're grieving too much, and there's nothing in between. And so I don't know what Oscar is going through, but I use these videos as a jumping off point to talk about things, and that's what I said.
And honestly,
Like, what was I supposed to do? Come up with some fake plan with you?
No, and I think it helped me out. Maybe I could see why people think like, oh, that's messed up. And I honestly, beforehand, I might have said, don't tell me on a family vacation or whatever. Mm-hmm. But now that it did happen on a family vacation, it was a blessing in disguise because I got to talk to my family about it while I was there.
Right. Another reason not to make assumptions about like that, because it sounds bad, right? It sounds bad. Like, you broke up with him while you were on vacation. And I find that people just jump to these conclusions frequently. It's just like, without asking the individual that's aggrieved, it's, oh my God, Kyra, it's so messed up for breaking up. And he's saying, well, honestly, if you would have asked me before, I would have said, yeah, I don't want you to do that. But actually, it was a blessing in disguise because da-da-da-da. So, and in the last video, I was talking, the one criticism one of the few criticisms I had of either one of them was that for her, I was like, yeah, you probably should have told him ASAP. And frequently people will wait. Her decision to wait until after the vacation, I find to be almost universal. And I don't recommend people do that. Because you risk the Oscars of the world saying, wait, so you went on that whole vacation knowing that you were going to break, like it feels betraying unless you're prepared to lie and say, which isn't great either, right? To say you didn't make the full decision until after the vacation, which I don't recommend. Breaking up is messy and it's going to screw things up. And if it screws up a vacation, what's one of the small things it's going to do to your life. Like, the amount of inconvenience that the breakup is going to do to their lives is astronomical compared to the minor inconvenience of it happening during a vacation. So usually people are using it as an excuse. They're just like, well, I just don't want to do it right now. And if that's the case, maybe that's okay. But, you risk hurting someone's feelings. There are better times to tell than others, but what I find is people tend to default to waiting when they probably shouldn't. If you know for sure, and it sounds like she knew, you probably should tell that person right away. And also anyway. So. And then people on the internet are attacking her because of that. And he's saying, no, actually, it was a good thing.
The thing that I want to clarify, that I feel like I need to clarify this a million times. My choice is not based on Oscar's character. Like, I'm not, yes, there's things that if you would have done differently in the relationship, I might have not made the choice when I did. Mm-hmm. But I don't think he's not a good dad. I don't think he's not a good partner. I don't think that you're not a...
Okay, so she's being consistent with the last video that part of the reason she's leaving him is because of his behavior. But she's being clear. I'm not saying I think of him, I'm breaking up with him because of his character. Breaking up partially because of the things that he did. And I wonder how Oscar is taking that right now. But that, I was saying earlier, it's just like she would be presenting the nice, presentable part of the room to him instead of the other part that she maybe feels bad about telling him.
Good person. Yes, do I think that you have some really bad traits that are relationship ending? Obviously. Mm-hmm. But
Okay, so there it is. She's saying you have some really bad behavioral traits that are causing me to leave you. Okay, so, and, Oscar's hearing that. Now, is she being fair? We don't know. But I think from the last video, it sounded like there was some agreement from him that he's like, yeah, that's fair. But we don't know the details on all the observations that she's making of him.
Respectfully, and just you as a person too. Like, I think you're great as well. Yeah, just throwing that out there. I guess you were telling me, and I'm just like, hey, wait, same. Like, well, I do appreciate you and everything you've done and everything you're continuing to do. Yeah. You're awesome. That feels...
It's really nice. It's really sweet to see. So he's showing his appreciation and saying, I appreciate you as a person, but also the way that we're breaking up. I mean, I'm guessing Oscar is recognizing, look, there are worse ways to break up with someone. I'm sorry that, I did what I did and you're leaving me, but... and you have to find yourself, and that sucks, and it's sad, but, under the circumstances, you're being really great. We're still friends. You're being open with me. You're not, you're not attacking me, you're not, going on the internet. Because, we know that there are people on the internet who break up sometimes, and then they just start talking crap about each other all the time on, various different platforms. And so, actually it's interesting. I wonder if that's part of the equation, because if they make their living from this YouTube channel, which I'm guessing they do, at least in part, they are thinking about long term, for their kids' sake and their livelihood's sake, that they want to preserve the brand a little bit.
Mom and dad aren't together, but we're still gonna be hanging out together here at the house. Okay, it might just be more me time and then more her time with you guys. I don't know if do I even bring it up and just kind of keep going? Because right now,
things are so normal from their point of view. We're
at least we think, we don't, but we think
based on their reactions, other than when we were gone. Because now that we're both back and stuff, Levi seems to be okay.
Better, right?
Yeah.
So good. They're thinking about how, or at least they're talking about when and how to tell the kids. It's a pretty delicate process. Oscar admits, well, we don't know. They might be picking up on things, and it's possible that they are. But it's also possible the kids aren't really seeing much, maybe a little bit, but, resilience, and they're just moving forward. So it is a pretty major question. And I've worked with families in situations like this, and there's no real right answer, so to speak, but there are principles and guidelines to follow, which are, you don't want to lie to the kids, 1. 2, you want to tell them together. 3, you don't want to tell them everything because they can't handle it. Even teenagers, okay? You want to tell them only as much as they need to know. And also, if they have questions, you want to be able to respond in a way that answers the question but doesn't give them the full thing. Like if they're saying, well, I don't understand, why are you breaking up? You don't want to say, well, let me tell you, You want to have a prepared statement that you both agree on, that you can say, that is true and is natural, but doesn't explain the whole thing. Common things that people will say are, well, we fell out of love. We still love each other as family and will always be there for you, but our relationship is just not what it used to be. Or, this isn't great, but anyway, there's ways of saying it that are explaining it and truthful, but you're not going into detail. The other principles you want to follow is you do not want to put the child in the middle. So that's why you tell them all at the same time. The other principle you want to follow is the kids will blame themselves. Not all kids, but most kids will blame themselves in completely irrational ways. I once had a family with a kid who was 10-ish, and he was home, and his dad said, I want you to mow the lawn. And the kid was like, oh, okay, I'll do it later. And the dad was like, you need to do it now. And then the dad went upstairs, and the kid hid and started playing video games. And then later that night, the parents brought all the kids into the living room and announced that they were divorcing. And for years to come, that kid thought that his parents were getting divorced because he didn't mow the lawn. And we, of course, know that's not true. But never underestimate the magical thinking and the simplistic mind of a child. They do not understand. And that's another principle to follow is do not assume a child understands how romance works and how divorce works and how relationships work. They don't get it. Also, another principle, and if they do get it, you've probably let them too into your relationship, by the way, and start drawing those boundaries. The other principle you want to follow is you want the kid to know and feel secure. That's actually the primary feeling and the primary risk, and it's almost universal to kids going through this, is they're selfish. And that's good. They will immediately think about what it means to them. Best case scenario, they don't really, initially, they don't care about what's going on for you. They care about themselves. And the fact that you two are breaking up introduces this idea to them for the very first time since they've been on the planet that, wait, your love can change? Because you loved mommy, but now you no longer love mommy or you no longer want to be with mommy. Does that mean you're going to reject me? And that question has to be addressed, even if the kid doesn't alert you to that. You have to like get out ahead of that. And that's where all those phrases like, I'm never going to leave you. I'm always going to be connected, you know, under best case scenario, you have an amicable breakup, but sometimes you don't. But you have to really communicate, I'm never going to leave you. I will never divorce you. That's just not humanly possible. I am never going to leave you. That is never going to happen. Or we are never going to leave you. That is never going to happen. Questions about, you know, custody and going back and forth, you know, you can address that later, but you would want to reassure and say like, we'll work with you. You know, we're not going to do anything. Nothing's going to happen overnight. And we will tell you well in advance. And that's the other thing. You want to give kids lots of lead time. In 3 months' time, this is going to happen. Remember what I said? In 2 months, I'm going to move out, and then you're going to do visitation. And when the calendar gets to June, this is going to, you want to give kids lots of lead time. Some people don't. They're like, I don't want to bother the kids with it. We'll wait till the last minute. And it's just like, it's not a good idea. The other principle you want to follow is assume that they're having emotions. And even, because a lot of times parents will tell their kids and their kids will be like, huh, and the kids will go play video games or, they seem unfazed with it. Do not assume that they haven't had a massive emotional bomb go off inside of them. Kids express themselves differently sometimes. And so just assume that they're going through a lot and account for that. Also get ready for regression. When kids go through stress, they tend to regress. So a 6-year-old will become a 3-year-old for a bit of time, and that's okay. It's just natural. Other principles to follow. Anyway, those are some. The other is to get your family, get extended family if you can, get support, show that everyone is on board with it, that all those relationships will be retained, that sort of thing.
Like what's going to happen sleeping arrangement wise, and I told her, I want to go downstairs.
Well, I don't know. We're still figuring these things out, but as of right now, I think the kids are okay, and until they start to ask questions, there's no need for us to say anything, especially considering there's not really a change from their point of view. If we started changing dynamics and things started changing or whatever, then maybe it might be necessary.
So I'm not super encouraged with that, but it makes sense because it's like there's not a lot of good guidance out there. What I would say to them is like, well, okay, the roadmap, here's where you are now. Eventually you're going to be down here, which is separated, not living together, divorced, with other people. And your kids are going to be intimately involved in every transition to that point. You might not be with other people, you might not have kids with other people, but you're going to be divorced and not living together. That's the plan, right? Okay, so every step of the way, you have to plan out. And you have to say, okay, so if we're moving out and if, this is going to happen in 2 months, or if we're going to start dating other people, we have to start preparing our kids for that now. What I hear her saying is, well, there's no need to do anything yet, so we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. And that's not the best idea. It might work out depending on what happens in the future, but if I were there, I'd be like, no, we need to be conscientious about this and make some plans. So it's okay if you don't know because you're very early in this process. It's okay if you don't know the roadmap, but as soon as you start knowing like, okay, there's going to be this change, then we have to start thinking about how you're going to prepare the kids for that. And there's going to be age-appropriate communication to the children that you two will coordinate.
Or I don't know what.
It turns off after 30 minutes?
I genuinely feel like you seem happier and you seem more inspired and
but also it might just be like I said, I haven't really found myself, and I need to just go through
you
that.
can't
honestly,
love someone fully until you learn to love yourself. I believe that, and I
hear this phrase all the time, and I almost never know exactly what people mean by that, and half the time I find I don't really agree with the premise. I don't know what Kyra means by this. Maybe she'll explain it, but whenever I hear it, I want to comment on it because it is in line with my work. And I will say that it's true that if you have very low self-esteem or you aren't connected with the self, it's going to be hard to love someone for a variety of reasons that I won't bore you with right now. But yes, but I think what people, and I'll also say that in order to love yourself, you have to have people love you. Like we are, this idea is a particularly kind of an American idea of like, you go up the mountain by yourself and then you figure things out and then you come down the mountain and you interact with people. That's not how humans work. We never did that. When we were evolving on the African savanna, we didn't wander off into the wilderness and figure things out. We existed within a tribe. We existed within our kin and our attachments throughout our lives. Anthropologists and people will, experts will, hypothesize pretty strongly that we lived the way bonobos and chimps do, which is, highly tribal and within a group of protection and sharing resources and da-da-da. And so we're not solitary creatures. And so to love someone, when people say, in order to love someone else, you have to love yourself. And that sounds great, but it's more accurate to say, in order to love yourself, you have to have someone love you. Because for those people who don't love themselves, for those people who have low self-esteem, why is it? Well, it's because people treated them like crap. So the answer to having good self-esteem is when other people love us and give us reasons to believe that we are good people. We learn from experience. And to go off by yourself and say, I'm a good person, but no one else likes me, because that's, throughout my whole life, no one has ever loved me, but I'm a good person, that's almost impossible. And I've worked with people throughout my career on self-esteem, and I'm telling you, wandering off into the wilderness and just trying to convince yourself that you're a good person is almost impossible. So that's the other thing I'll say. And the other thing that I'll say about this idea about in order to love someone, you have to love yourself, is that a lot of people will say that when they're breaking up. They'll say, it's hard for me to love you because I don't love myself yet. And I think they're just saying that as a way of saying, look, it's not you, it's me. And I have to go off and love myself, and then I'll be able to love someone or something like that. And I don't know. I mean, it's fine if that's how people see the world, but there are those caveats that I mentioned.
Have very little love for myself, and so how am I supposed to love somebody else?
Which is crazy, because we've done a lot, dude. We have a lot to be proud of. We're just like sad about what,
Well, I don't think you're not allowed to be sad just because you have good things. I think.
So I'm hearing some signs, particularly from her, but sounds like from him too, of a lot of past difficulties. And it's interesting because, of course, if you saw their regular videos, they seem like extremely positive, happy, chipper, wonderful, constantly peppy people. But we see the reality of it that at least she is saying she's suffering quite a lot. She talked about depression in the previous video. So I'm guessing that she's been through a lot, and part of what I was saying earlier in terms of lack of disconnection with the self has to do with that early childhood neglect or mistreatment or something. I don't know, obviously, but there are signs of that for sure. And like I said, sometimes it can be quite obvious, like actual abuse, and you'll ask the individual, like, oh yeah, I went through a rough childhood. But sometimes it's more subtle than that. You can have parents who were there for you and loving and stable, but there was an emotional environment when the child was 0 to 6 that was such that developed this anxiety or this disconnection with the self or demoralization. So I would suspect that there's something like that in both of their histories, given what they've been saying, but I don't know.
This is it. This is like, I want to grow, but don't really know how.
I think that Oscar and I really thrive off of change. Like we always have, when we've moved, when we've had kids, when we started our YouTube channel, like any big change in our life we've done so well with. Yeah. And in the past couple of years, nothing has changed. And so I feel like...
Well, that's interesting. So each child that they had moving, when you don't have a connection with the self and you don't know you don't have a connection with the self, then it does feel good if you can transition, because it gives you something to do. It defines yourself. It gives you an identity of like, I am the person that is now moving. I am the person that is doing this YouTube channel. And there can be this temporary boost of meaning and identity and feeling grounded. And then after a while it wears off and you're like, wait, who am I? What am I doing? How do I feel? I no longer have that thing to define me, and I'm back to that place where I don't know who I am. I wonder if that's what she's talking about.
In Palm Desert.
Yeah, but again, change. And so I think that when we don't change and we don't grow, we both become extremely frustrated with each other, with ourselves, with our environment.
Right. So I don't know. I'm making a lot of speculative guesses, but when you get to that state, then you get sad and you just get frustrated. You start blaming things. It's like, something's wrong. I feel like something's wrong. It must be you. And you can have conflict in that situation.
Happy, and we started going through things, we stopped uploading, basically.
Yeah, once it got really bad.
Yeah.
Really, really bad.
So what was my point of that? Oh, I hope that people can see that, I was saying, I feel bad. I know that it's probably weird and sad, and it has been for us too, and we're still learning and adjusting, and I'm sure it's going to take a long time. But
yeah, I'm guessing that for a good percentage of their viewership that they're grieving. And we call them parasocial relationships. It's not a bad word. It's just a phenomenon that we've known about for decades, where we as people will have a one-way relationship with a celebrity of some kind or some figure. They don't know us, but we know them, and we feel very connected to them. And when they have bad things happen, like divorce or maybe even death, like David Bowie or Prince or something, you cry like it was your partner or your friend. And from the outside, if you can't relate, you'd be like, why are you crying? But David Bowie didn't know you. Right? Or if you're sad about this couple breaking up, who cares? Like, you don't even know these people. It's totally normal. It's a total normal phenomenon. I have my parasocial relationships that I'm in, that they don't know me, and I have, I feel connected to them, even, and I know that I'm not actually, but if something bad happened to them, I would grieve and have. So I'm guessing that a lot of their viewership has had that happen, and it's normal, and it's something that they have to think about doing something to take care of them on some level. And I guess that's part of what these videos are. It's just like, it's I guess it's kind of like telling their kids. It's very much of a parallel to that. Of course, it's mostly adults, right? So you can count on maturity to be able to give resiliency to the audience, but they have to, they're sitting all of us down right now and saying, okay, kids, we have something to tell you, which is healthy.
We are still a team. We still love our kids. We still want what's best for our kids. I have no intentions of bashing Oscar or making him look bad, because I love him. He's still my best friend, and I hope that continues for the rest of my life.
Yeah, same. No intention to make you look bad. Same. I'm sorry if there's anything I've said or done that makes you look bad. Like, I really do apologize.
Well, I think you're honest, and I think that that's important throughout this process.
Okay, interesting. So she is saying, I'm not going to bash him. He's like saying, I'm not going to bash you. They're talking about that thing that can happen on the internet sometimes, which can be, pretty ugly, can sometimes increase one's popularity, but, it's a deal with the devil. And then he says, I'm sorry if I did anything that caused a problem. I wonder, I don't know, I'd have to ask him if he's saying, in the last video, you got a lot of hate and people seem to be siding with me, and that wasn't my intention. So I'm sorry about that. And you're kind of getting on our presentation to our children of our channel. You kind of got the short end of the stick. Everyone hates you now, or a lot of people are angry at you. And did I do something in the last video that kind of encouraged that? Because I didn't mean to do that.
But I'm just saying, like, intentionally, I know we would never bash each other. Like, I can say the same for both of us. So, anyways.
Dude, next video better be a positive one, all right?
This is positive.
You're right.
It's just weird.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
So, obviously they can do whatever they want to with their channel, but I think, it's not a bad thing to continue with, at least updates along these lines. One, because of the emotional state of the viewer, if they care. And I guess now I'm kind of invested. I'd like to know how they're doing. Updates, I suppose. They, of course, aren't obligated to do that. And also, I think is good content. I think it's important content. It's real content. They seem very genuine. And it's a good model to follow. A lot of people can look at this. I think there are some people that, honestly, there could be viewers who have been through really, as children, they went through really difficult divorcing parents who can look at this and say like, wow, like, look at that. This is actually kind of therapeutic to watch, like two people who don't hate each other. It's just nice to see. I could imagine that.
Right, but I need like happy vibes only.
Yes.
No more sad topics. Let's just continue. Oh,
and baby woke up. So.
Okay, so more of that. I want happy topics. I personally need that. Maybe he's in that rebuilding phase. He's just like, I can't. I don't want to think about it, and that's okay. And maybe that's where he's at today when you're shooting this, is like, I just need things to be positive. I don't want to live in the grief. Maybe that's what he's talking about. The other side of it is, if you're taught a certain thing or you have internalized oppression around emotions, you might actually, your body might want to grieve, but you're telling yourself, no, I need to be positive. So it's hard to know what that is. I'd have to ask him. But I just, if I could ask him, I would just ask him that question. Like, do you think your body wants to grieve? Do you feel like you're not allowed to grieve, or are you just wanting to just not think about it today? Usually people have a pretty good connect, but if you're not in connection with your emotions and you weren't given that chance growing up, you might have a hard time answering that question. And then, so that, that's where therapy comes into play, and you can really talk about it for a long time. But anyway,
that's our cue.
All right, well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle. If you ever want me to react to something, feel free to email the video to go to the website psychologyseattle.com, click on the contact button, or you can, I don't know, maybe DM me on Instagram or something. I don't always see those things, but sometimes I do it. So if you really want to contact me, go to the website and send it, because I wouldn't have found out about these videos if it wasn't for y'all. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself, because you deserve it. You really, really do.